The night split open with a scream that was not Diana's, yet it tore from her throat, as if something ancient had claimed her body. She clutched her chest, her breath shallow, her eyes darting toward the shadows crawling across her bedroom walls. Diana said, "Please stop, it hurts." The air grew heavy, thick like wet cloth pressing down on her skin, as whispers slithered through the dark, circling her head like vultures. She tried to call for Marcus, but her voice fractured into a sob, swallowed by the void. The mirror across the room shimmered, her reflection smiling when she did not. A voice rasped inside her skull, "You are mine." She collapsed onto the floorboards, trembling, as the old wooden planks beneath her rattled as if alive. The horror came not from what she saw, but from what she could feel. The certainty that her life had already been stolen. The storm subsided, but the silence was worse. Diana lay on the floor, her breath shallow, while Marcus hovered near, torn between fear and disbelief. Marcus said, "You're scaring me, Diana. What's happening to you?" She turned her head slowly, her lips trembling, but no words came. The air smelled of iron and ash, and every shadow seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Diana dragged herself toward the bed, her nails scraping the wood, leaving deep marks as if her strength came from somewhere else. The whispers returned, faint but insistent, filling the room like an invisible tide. Marcus looked to the window, his rational mind rebelling, but the storm outside had vanished completely, leaving an unnatural stillness. Diana sat upright on the edge of the bed, her face hidden behind her hair, her shoulders shaking with shallow breaths. Marcus stood at a distance, unwilling to come closer. Marcus said, "I'll call Evelyn, she'll know what to do." Diana lifted her head, eyes blackened like pits of tar, and whispered, "Don't. She already knows." His stomach twisted as the room grew darker, the lamp flickering though the power had not failed. He backed away, reaching for the door, but the wood groaned as if it were alive. Every surface seemed to ripple with unseen movement, the air heavy with unseen hands pressing against him. Marcus realized the woman before him was not entirely Diana anymore. Evelyn arrived quietly, her presence commanding even in the suffocating gloom. She carried an old leather-bound book, its cover cracked and marked with symbols Marcus had never seen. Evelyn said, "She's no longer alone in that body." Marcus demanded, "Then fix it before it's too late." Evelyn's eyes, calm but cold, lingered on Diana, who now sat still, her face blank as if she were a doll. A chill ran through Marcus as Evelyn began reciting from the book, her words like fire against the silence. Diana's head snapped back violently, a scream breaking from her chest, so piercing it rattled the glass in the windows. Diana collapsed onto the bed, gasping as the scream faded, her face drenched in sweat. Marcus rushed forward, but Evelyn raised a hand to stop him. Evelyn said, "It's only begun. If we push harder now, she'll shatter." Marcus clenched his fists, torn between rage and helplessness, while Diana whispered faintly, "Make it stop, please." Her voice was not alone. Another echoed beneath it, deeper and crueler, mocking her plea. Marcus stumbled backward, his heart hammering as if something clawed inside his own chest. The whispers swelled again, louder, overlapping until the entire room vibrated with unseen voices. Evelyn lowered her gaze, her calm cracked just enough to show fear. Morning arrived, but it carried no peace. Diana sat by the window, staring at the pale sky as if the storm still raged inside her. Marcus brewed coffee in the kitchen, his hands trembling, unwilling to look at her. He said, "You didn't sleep, did you?" She didn't answer, her lips moving in silence, as though she were speaking to someone only she could hear. The air smelled metallic again, faint but sharp, like iron dust. When Marcus placed the mug in front of her, Diana finally spoke. Diana said, "He whispers to me still. He never left." Her voice was calm, almost detached, but her eyes glimmered with something alien, a shadow dancing beneath their surface. Marcus stepped back, his mind rejecting what his heart already knew. The woman he loved was no longer only herself. By noon, Diana refused to eat. She pushed the plate away, her fingers trembling as though she no longer recognized her own body. Marcus tried to force a smile, urging her to take a bite, but she only stared. Marcus said, "If you don't eat, you'll collapse." Diana tilted her head, her eyes unfocused, and murmured, "He feeds me, not you." Marcus's throat tightened, his logical mind faltering. The room seemed darker, though sunlight streamed in. A shadow stretched unnaturally along the wall, moving when Diana did not. The unease burrowed deeper into Marcus' chest, the line between reality and nightmare blurring. His hand hovered above hers, but he couldn't bring himself to touch her. The house grew colder as dusk approached. Marcus wrapped himself in a blanket, but his skin still prickled with goosebumps. Diana walked barefoot through the hallway, her fingers trailing along the wall as if guided by something unseen. Marcus followed quietly, his chest heavy. He whispered, "Where are you going?" She paused, turning her head slowly, her hair falling across her hollow face. Diana said, "He calls me." Her voice echoed unnaturally, layered with something deeper. The lights above flickered, buzzing before cutting to black, leaving only the faint glow of the setting sun through stained glass. Marcus froze as the hallway seemed to stretch longer than it ever had before. Evelyn returned at sundown, her steps firm, carrying a pouch of herbs and a small iron pendant. Marcus rushed to her, desperation etched across his face. He said, "She's worse, she's slipping away." Evelyn placed a steady hand on his shoulder and whispered, "The entity has rooted itself. We can only slow it, not stop it yet." Diana stood motionless in the doorway, her head tilted at an unnatural angle, her lips curving into a faint smile that was not her own. Evelyn's gaze hardened as she raised the pendant. Evelyn said, "This may draw it out." The room's air grew heavy, pressing against their lungs, as the smell of smoke filled the space, though no fire burned. The pendant glowed faintly, vibrating in Evelyn's hand, and Diana shrieked as if burned. Her body convulsed, slamming against the doorframe, her voice shifting between cries and guttural snarls. Marcus rushed forward, only for Evelyn to shout, "Stay back!" Diana's scream broke into a laugh, mocking, cruel, a sound that didn't belong to her. She gasped between echoes, "He likes you, Marcus." The words chilled him deeper than the winter air outside. Evelyn pressed the pendant closer, chanting under her breath, sweat dripping down her temple. Diana collapsed suddenly, her body limp, but her eyes still glimmered with the darkness inside. The silence that followed felt heavier than the chaos. Night returned with suffocating weight, every corner of the house filled with restless silence. Marcus sat by Diana's bedside, watching her chest rise and fall, uncertain if the woman before him was truly his wife. He whispered, "Please, fight it, Diana." Her eyes fluttered open, pupils dilated, a faint grin spreading without reason. Diana said, "He doesn't sleep. Why should I?" The words cut deep, her tone layered with a mocking resonance. The shadows around the room thickened, stretching unnaturally across the walls. The lamp flickered until it died, leaving Marcus in near darkness, with only the sound of a breath behind him. He turned quickly, but nothing was there, only the sense that something unseen had leaned close enough to touch him. The next morning, Marcus tried to convince himself it had been exhaustion playing tricks, but the house resisted his denial. The kitchen smelled of rot, though nothing spoiled sat inside. He searched cupboards, his hands shaking, muttering, "This can't be real." Behind him, Diana entered silently, her feet leaving no sound on the tiles. Her voice drifted softly. Diana said, "He's hungry." Marcus froze, his heart racing, as a plate slid from the counter by itself and shattered across the floor. Diana didn't flinch. Instead, she tilted her head, watching him with eyes both familiar and foreign. Marcus stepped back, his throat dry, realizing the force inside her was growing bolder. Marcus called Evelyn in desperation, his voice breaking as he explained the latest horror. She arrived at dusk, carrying a bundle of candles and a small vial of dark liquid. Evelyn said, "The possession tightens its hold. Tonight will test her." Marcus paced, running his fingers through his hair, his breathing ragged. Diana sat calmly at the table, her hands folded neatly, though her eyes followed every movement like a predator stalking prey. Evelyn lit the candles, their flames flickering wildly, though no breeze stirred. The house groaned as if alive, and Diana whispered, "He doesn't fear you, Evelyn. He waits for you to fail." Marcus gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white as dread consumed him. The ritual began with Evelyn's chanting, each word pressing against the silence like iron on flesh. Diana's body convulsed, her fingers clawing at the wooden chair, until splinters broke beneath her nails. Marcus tried to intervene, but Evelyn barked, "Do not touch her." Diana shrieked, her voice overlapping with something guttural and inhuman, rattling the walls of the house. The candles blew out in unison, plunging them into complete darkness. For a moment, Marcus swore he felt claws brush across his back. Evelyn struck a match, relighting one candle, her face pale but unwavering. Diana sagged forward, sweat dripping, but her eyes flashed with defiance, the entity mocking through her body. After the ritual ended, abruptly, silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Diana slumped back in the chair, her breathing ragged, her body trembling as though every muscle screamed in pain. Marcus dropped to his knees beside her, whispering, "Please, come back to me." Her lips curled faintly into a cruel smile as she whispered, "She's gone." The words froze Marcus, his eyes wide with terror. Evelyn closed her book sharply, her voice low but urgent. Evelyn said, "This is no longer about saving her. It is about surviving what's inside her." The weight of those words crushed Marcus, his heart aching with helplessness, as he realized Diana might never truly return. The following night, Evelyn gathered Marcus in the parlor, the book laid open on the table. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed the weight of hidden knowledge. Evelyn said, "This isn't random. Diana's bloodline carries an old curse." Marcus felt his chest tighten as he shook his head. He whispered, "No, not her." Evelyn turned a page, showing faded ink drawings of women bound in chains, their faces twisted in agony. Diana entered silently, her eyes reflecting candlelight like glass. She smiled faintly, whispering, "He told me already. He belongs to us." Marcus's blood ran cold as he realized Diana was not ignorant of her fate. She had known before he did. Evelyn revealed the truth with measured words, her voice almost reverent. Evelyn said, "Every generation, one woman becomes the vessel. The demon waits until she's most vulnerable." Marcus clenched his fists, anger shaking his voice. He said, "Then we end it now." Diana laughed softly, the sound brittle, hollow. She whispered, "You can't end what was promised centuries ago." The fire in the hearth sputtered, sparks leaping into the air though no wind stirred. The shadows grew longer, stretching like skeletal hands across the walls. Marcus turned toward Diana, but for a split second he saw not his wife, but another woman's face staring back at him, one from the drawings in Evelyn's book. The entity grew bolder as midnight approached. Diana sat in a chair, rocking slowly, her lips whispering names Marcus did not recognize. He leaned closer, chilled by the way each name was spoken like a prayer. Evelyn scribbled hurried notes, her brow furrowed. Marcus asked, "What is she saying?" Evelyn did not look up as she whispered, "The names of the dead who carried the curse before her." Diana's rocking stopped suddenly, her head snapping up with unnatural speed. Diana said, "They all failed. I won't." Her eyes glowed faintly, and for an instant Marcus swore he could see another face overlapping hers, one both ancient and hateful. The air grew heavy as Evelyn lit incense, the smoke curling unnaturally, clinging to Diana like chains. Evelyn said, "This will reveal what hides within." Marcus gripped the armrest, his nails digging deep as Diana's body stiffened. Her voice deepened, echoing with something cruel. "Do you want to see me?" The smoke thickened, forming grotesque shapes above her head, faces screaming silently before vanishing. Diana's mouth stretched into an unnatural grin as she whispered, "He doesn't fear you, Evelyn. He laughs at you." Marcus's heart pounded, sweat dripping from his temple as the grotesque shape swirled, each moment clawing at his sanity. When the smoke finally cleared, Diana slumped forward, her body shaking with exhaustion. Marcus reached for her, but she recoiled, her eyes burning with fury. Diana said, "Don't touch me. You're not strong enough." The words struck him harder than any blow. Evelyn closed the incense container, her face pale, her lips trembling despite her effort to remain composed. She whispered, "The bond is deeper than I feared. She's not just possessed, she's chosen." Marcus staggered back, the room spinning, as his hope crumbled. The revelation left him hollow, realizing Diana might not only be a victim, but an unwilling heir to the curse itself. The following days blurred into restless nights as Diana's laughter echoed through the house at odd hours, sharp and hollow. Marcus sat awake, eyes bloodshot, clutching a glass of water he could not bring himself to drink. Diana paced the room, muttering to herself, her fingers scratching the walls until paint peeled beneath her nails. Marcus said, "Diana, stop. You're hurting yourself." She turned slowly, her smile wide, her voice layered with something inhuman. Diana said, "It's not me." The sight of her trembling body paired with that monstrous voice fractured Marcus's resolve. He pressed his hands against his ears, but the sound still crawled beneath his skin, a reminder that she was no longer only his wife. Marcus found Diana in the bathroom, hunched over the sink, whispering to her reflection. The mirror was fogged, though no steam filled the air. He froze at the doorway, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Diana, who are you talking to?" She raised her head slowly, her reflection not matching her movements, eyes black as midnight. Diana's reflection said, "Not you." Marcus stumbled backward, his breath catching, the mirror cracking from the center outward as if struck by invisible force. Diana shrieked, clutching her face while Marcus grabbed her arms to pull her away. The glass shards rattled but did not fall, each piece trembling with silent laughter. The house itself began to turn against them. Doors groaned and slammed shut, locking Marcus in rooms with shadows crawling along the walls. He pounded the door with his fists, shouting, "Let me out!" A faint laugh followed him, carried through the cracks. When the door finally creaked open, Diana stood in the frame, her head tilted unnaturally. She whispered, "He likes to play." Marcus staggered back, his body trembling as the air grew colder. His breath clouded in front of him, though the fire still burned in the hearth. He realized the demon was no longer confined to Diana. It was seeping into every corner of their home. Evelyn attempted another ritual, placing protective symbols across the walls with trembling hands. Marcus hovered nearby, desperation in every step. Evelyn said, "This will weaken the grip, but it may not last." Diana's body convulsed violently, her voice splitting into screams and guttural growls. She clawed at the air, as though fighting invisible chains, her eyes rolling back until only whites remained. Marcus reached forward, pleading, "Fight it, Diana, please." But the voice that answered was not hers. It snarled, "She is mine." Evelyn pressed forward, chanting faster, sweat dripping from her brow. The walls shook violently, pictures falling and shattering, as if the house itself resisted. When the ritual ended, Diana collapsed on the floor, gasping like a drowning soul. Marcus knelt beside her, his hand trembling as it brushed her cheek. Her eyes opened slowly, tears slipping down, but her smile was cruel, mocking. Diana whispered, "You love me still, even like this." Marcus recoiled, horror twisting his face, realizing the demon used her voice to break him. Evelyn's voice cracked as she said, "She's almost gone, Marcus. The more you care, the stronger it feeds." His heart split in two, torn between love and survival, knowing his devotion was becoming the weapon against him. The house fell quiet again, but the silence carried only despair. The night of reckoning arrived with an unnatural storm tearing through the sky, thunder rattling the windows like fists pounding on glass. Evelyn prepared the final ritual in the basement, chalk symbols covering the stone floor, her hands steady despite the trembling in her chest. Marcus carried Diana down, her body limp, her breath shallow, as if she were already halfway gone. When her eyes opened, they glowed with cruel fire, and she snarled, "You can't take me away from him." Marcus's voice cracked as he shouted, "I won't lose you, Diana." The air grew colder, their breath visible, while the walls vibrated with deep growls. Evelyn raised her book and commanded, "Stand firm. Tonight decides everything." As the chanting began, Diana writhed on the stone floor, her back arching in unnatural contortions, bones cracking audibly with every motion. Her voice split into a chorus, dozens of voices screaming and laughing in unison. Marcus covered his ears, his knees buckling, but Evelyn pressed forward, raising the pendant above Diana's body. The symbols on the ground began to glow, burning with faint blue light. Diana shrieked, her nails clawing at the stone, sparks flying where they scraped. Marcus shouted desperately, "Fight it, Diana. Please." For a moment, her expression softened, her lips trembling as if she recognized him. But then the entity surged, slamming her body against the floor violently. The basement shook violently, dust falling from the beams as if the house itself were splitting apart. Evelyn shouted, her voice steady despite the chaos, "Name it, force it into the open." Marcus hesitated, fear clutching his throat, until Diana's voice growled, "Say my name and I'll destroy you." Marcus's eyes welled with tears as he screamed, "You're not her. You're nothing but a parasite." Diana's body convulsed, her mouth stretching open wider than humanly possible, a black vapor pouring out like smoke alive with malice. Evelyn pressed the pendant closer, her chanting growing louder. The vapor swirled violently, clawing at Marcus as if it wanted to drag him into the void with it. The entity's form began to manifest within the smoke. Elongated limbs, hollow eyes, a figure neither flesh nor shadow. Marcus' heart nearly stopped as it loomed above them, whispering his name with a voice like broken glass. Evelyn shouted, "Do not look at it directly," but Marcus' gaze was locked, terror freezing him in place. Diana screamed, her body thrashing as if her soul were being torn apart. Evelyn slammed the pendant into the glowing circle, the ground vibrating with force. The smoke recoiled, the figure twisting violently, shrieking in unearthly rage. Marcus collapsed to his knees, clutching his chest, praying the ritual would hold as the basement filled with blinding light. The light burned so bright, Marcus shielded his eyes, his ears ringing as Diana's screams tore through the basement like thunder. Then silence struck, crushing, unbearable. When Marcus looked again, Diana lay motionless, her face pale, her chest rising only faintly. Evelyn fell to her knees, her pendant cracked and smoking in her hand. She whispered, "I don't know if we banished it, or bound it deeper." Marcus crawled to Diana, pulling her into his arms, sobbing. Her eyes fluttered open, but what stared back at him was not entirely her. Diana said in a voice soft yet fractured, "I told you, he never leaves." Marcus froze, horror drowning the fleeting relief he felt. The basement reeked of smoke and iron, silence pressing so thick it felt alive. Marcus cradled Diana, rocking her as if his touch alone could protect her from the void that lingered. Evelyn sat slumped against the wall, her eyes heavy with failure. Marcus whispered, "We beat it, right?" His words sounded hollow, even to him. Diana stirred faintly, her lips brushing his ear. Diana whispered, "He's quiet now, but he's still here." The words froze Marcus's blood. Evelyn forced herself upright, her voice low and grim. Evelyn said, "The curse never ends in victory, only survival." The truth clawed deep into Marcus's soul, knowing their nightmare had only shifted form. They moved Diana upstairs, placing her in bed, the storm outside replaced by eerie calm. Marcus sat by her side, unable to leave, his eyes hollow with dread. Evelyn lit herbs in the corner, the smoke spiraling slowly upward, yet it brought no comfort. Marcus asked, "What if it takes her again?" Evelyn didn't answer, her silence sharper than any truth. Diana turned her head slowly, her gaze locking with Marcus, her voice soft but unnatural. Diana said, "You'll never let me go, and neither will he." Marcus's stomach twisted as he realized his love had become the demon's anchor, binding it to her, binding it to him. The following day, Marcus ventured outside for the first time in days. The air was crisp, the world eerily normal. As neighbors carried on unaware of the horror festering inside his home, he leaned against the porch railing, his body heavy, eyes staring blankly at the street. He whispered to himself, "How do I live like this?" A voice answered from behind his shoulder, a whisper soft and mocking. "With me." He spun around, but no one stood there. From the window above, Diana watched, her expression unreadable, her silhouette framed like a doll in a glass case. Marcus knew then he was trapped not only with her, but with what she carried. That night, Evelyn packed her belongings, her eyes weary but resolute. She placed a hand on Marcus' shoulder, her voice soft. Evelyn said, "You must decide what you can endure. She may never be freed." Marcus's throat tightened, anger and sorrow colliding. He whispered, "I can't abandon her." Evelyn nodded slowly, though sadness lingered in her gaze. As she left, the air grew colder, the walls groaning as if to mock her departure. Diana sat upright in bed, her smile cruel yet fragile. Diana said, "She leaves, but I'll always be here." Marcus's chest ached, the weight of eternal torment pressing down as he realized no one else could carry this burden with him. The final night came with an oppressive stillness. Marcus sat in the bedroom, watching Diana sleep, though her breaths seemed too shallow, too deliberate. He whispered, "I'll love you, no matter what." Her eyes snapped open, glowing faintly, her lips curling into a whisper that froze his heart. Diana said, "Then you'll never escape me." The lamp flickered violently, the shadows around them thickening until the room was almost entirely black. Marcus's hand trembled as he reached for her, torn between devotion and terror. The last sound was a low laugh, soft as silk, wrapping around his ears. It carried the promise that this horror would never end.